Hi, I'm Mike Peterson, and today we're speaking with Greg Morgan, the author of Sin Eater, which is the final book in his compelling trilogy, Death Shall Have No Domain. Greg, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's my pleasure.
Yeah.
So let's start with the fascinating origin of this trilogy. How did you first discover these forgotten death rituals that became the foundation of these extraordinary books?
I was in film school, college, and I saw this short film about a sin eater, and I'd never heard of this thing ever. Afterwards, I had to find out more about this thing. And so I went to the library before the internet. In the back of this library, found some books about ancient rituals in America. I just took notes like crazy, wrote 60 pages of a book, and then shelved it.
30 years. Because that's quite a gestation period.
Yeah, I know.
So what made you return to the story after all this time?
I got into filmmaking, was busy with that. But it always nagged at me. I kept, picking at it now and then and looking at it, reading that first chapter.
Yeah. The novels weave together really multiple things. Family secrets, redemption, acceptance. When you're going through the process, when you're constructing the story, how do you balance all of those elements?
Really, themes to me, a lot of people think they're going to write a story and they think of a theme.
Yeah.
And to write. For me, no. It was really what happened to the characters' actions, what happened to them drove the themes.
I think one of the most compelling elements of Sin Eater is your protagonist, Osborne. Correct me if I mispronounce the last name, Roche?
That's it.
Okay. A neurodivergent character in a historical setting.
Yeah.
Really creative. What inspired this choice?
My first draft was some straight guy. He's kind of, masculine, and the female protagonist was, cute and stuff. Come on. This is not working.
Yeah.
And I thought, how do I flip the script?
Uh-huh.
That was interesting to me. If I do that, that's really going to change the whole storyline. And, series of events after that's going to change and everything based on this character.
So recently I read an interview with Jonathan Franzen, and he was talking about how essentially that approach to storytelling is what informed his first novel. Because you're right, I can't recall anything I've ever read that involves a neurodivergent character.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you sat down and you're thinking that you're going to go with
Normal
story structure that's existed for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And you decide to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
Huge risk,
It is.
in my opinion. So with that, what challenges did you find, once you really got into it? Did you find that you faced writing from Osborne's perspective as a neurodivergent character?
Great question. I had to do a ton of research because I wanted to write that character authentically. And I read a ton of things about neurodivergence. I even finally found some fiction with it as well, written by neurodivergent authors too. So I wrote the character the way I felt it should be. And then I even sent it out to, what do they call it? They call it a sensitivity editor.
Okay.
So one of my editors was sensitivity. So specifically for neurodivergence. And so am I saying something wrong that people are going to be put off by?
Yeah.
I fell in love with my character, Osborne. Obviously, I put him as also a starring role. He's a starring role in Collodion, but he's also a starring role in Sin Eater.
Yeah. The book touches on themes of stigma and acceptance that feel relevant today. You referenced the show Love on the Spectrum.
Yes.
And I've watched it, and I wonder, when the producers were sitting down, thinking, is this going to find relevance? Is this something that people are actually going to
watch,
tune in, and then stay with?
Yeah.
And I imagine you had to tackle some of those same questions when you're giving that amount of time.
Right.
Because you don't write a book in a day.
That's right.
So were those things a conscious choice? Because you mentioned earlier how much the characters inform you.
That's
Were there
right.
points where you felt like you were having to make conscious choices?
Yes, it was absolutely a conscious choice. Like I said, I did flip the script on purpose. But come to think of it, I could have flipped the script in various directions. I chose neurodivergence.
Yeah.
And the truth is, because I do have a lot of the characteristics that he has.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like the brown cloth and stuff. I'm that type that's always messing around with something like, I like that kind of tactile feeling.
Yeah.
So like twisting a cloth around your finger and stuff, I have him do it all the time. That's me.
Yeah.
So I gave him a lot of my idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
So I really related to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. And he is my favorite character to write. I will miss him.
I bet. I bet.
Maybe I'll think of another story.
So I noticed the Appalachian setting plays such a vital role
Yes.
in the story. And so, I just wonder what drew you to that particular part of the country? What drew you there to set the story?
I'm glad you asked me that. It's really based on what their professions.
Okay.
A lot of the Welsh, the Dutch, and the English went to there.
Okay.
They went to that region. They settled in that region. They liked the Appalachians. They liked the solitude. They didn't want to be part of the government, really. They wanted to be left alone.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of those traditions survived, because they were up there by themselves, sin-eating, professional mourning.
Yeah.
Modernism took over.
Okay.
Modernism didn't take over up there. Plus, I mean, the beautiful mountains, the misty hollows, and the whole old forests. It lends to that kind of story.
Yeah.
And I loved that setting anyways. But it was really a necessity since I knew the Dutch and the Welsh moved there
Okay.
in the early days of this country.
Okay, so let's talk about the structure of the novel. The way you weave multiple timelines and perspectives really quite intricately, which is not easy to do.
Right.
When you're doing that, how do you keep track of those various narrative threads to keep them so tightly woven and keep the reader engaged?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of rewriting. Because really, Weeper, I mean, I had multiple timelines, like you said, Claudine as well. But with Weeper, I would have to write down I had a whole list of their birth dates, when they left this town. It requires a ton of research, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And changing things and realizing, oh shoot, this character's way too young.
Yeah.
I didn't have to up her age or whatever.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, game.
Yeah.
And you really have to write down things or else you forget them.
Yeah.
How long does it take for a train to get from this town to this town? Back in the 1850s, I'd have to research all that.
Yeah.
Now, like I did it with Google Maps and stuff like that, back with Collodion. Now with AI, it tells me how long it takes for a train back in the 1870s to get from one city to the next. Phenomenal. I even ask it, does it have private compartments, not just the rows of seats? And you find out, so you can write that and authentically. Then you look at old pictures and you go, this is how I can describe it because I can see what it looks like. I don't have to imagine it. Well, I'm working with the 1850s. If I was a historical writer back in the Renaissance, I might be in a little bigger trouble.
Yes.
So
you talked a little bit before
Yeah.
about the research process necessary, because there is a lot of historical data in this trilogy. Your attention to getting it right is truly remarkable.
yeah. Oh, thanks.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And actually something that you just mentioned, I now have to bring this into the question, because so you mentioned it's historical fiction,
Yeah.
which means when you sit down and you're outlining the story, preparing it,
Yeah.
and then of course at some point you start to realize, as the story informs you, which you mentioned that near the top of the interview, you start to realize maybe it goes from here to here.
Yeah.
But it's not been done yet.
Right.
You could decide,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. The amount of work is going to be extraordinary. But you did make that decision because we're looking at the trilogy.
Right.
So, do you enjoy the research process? Like as you started to realize it's going from here to here.
Yes, yeah.
Do you find that you enjoy that?
I love the question because yes, that's so much part of my process. Is a lot of times I'm doing the research, and then I'll see there's something over here. That happened? Oh my God! And that'll change the story. You know, I got to go over here with this because that's really interesting. You know, and then with floating, there's so many scenes I cut, and I loved writing them. I was thinking, oh man, that's a story in itself. For instance, the time where he gets on this ship, this paddle wheel boat, he needs to escape something. So it's Osborne and Lou. They get on this paddle wheel boat, and it's called the Alice Dean. That's the name of the ship.
Okay.
And then they end up getting off, but that's because that's the way it's written now. But they went on a tangent because that's a real boat. And what happened with that Alice Dean, which is so interesting, is that one day they were flagged down by a ship, another paddle wheel that said that they were having problems with their ship. So they went over to him. Lo and behold, it's this general. His name is General Morgan, by the way. And and so they attacked the Alice Dean and just took it over. And said, we need it, you know, because we need this as a troop transport. And then then my characters are on this, in this real experience, and then they end up burning this Alice Dean after using it to transport all their troops across the river. And it was just a really cool story. I mean, a lot of them dressed up as Indians. Why? I don't know why, but it's such an interesting idea. And then, anyways, I had to cut it. I had to cut it because it took us on a divergent path, and I had to keep really going. And my editor is saying, "You got to cut, you got to cut this. I'd love the scene, but it's got to go." Going, it's just like as a filmmaker, it's like, but I love this scene.
Yes, right.
It's the same thing with chapters.
Yes.
It's like, damn, that was a good chapter. Right. So like that's kind of the thing. I learn things from history, and that will have an effect on the story at large because I want to go over here with this. I want to check this out.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because that little sidebar that you mentioned that you end up having to cut sounds like it could have been
really cool.
Maybe even a whole story in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because in what you just briefly described was they pirated.
Yeah. They pirated.
Yes, there was a hostage situation.
Yeah.
But it actually happened.
I know.
So if you backed it up to, like, where did that group of people start their day? Like, how did they get there?
Yeah.
That's a whole, I don't want to get off of that, but, because you just mentioned also a filmmaker. Well, briefly I will.
Yeah.
Separately, but it's related, actually. And so you just made me think of, and this might be helpful for anybody who's thinking about creating anything, whether as a filmmaker or even as a author now, the importance of making the writing real. That's a part of it. Yeah. But how much you have to love the process. Because a lot of people, they just want to get to the end result of having, 3 books or how people talk about their books. But you don't get here if you don't genuinely love the process. So it sounds like because you love the process that as soon as you read just a little bit about Alice Dean, like you were willing to go down that road. You weren't concerned, I need to get my pages written or whatever, because you just love the process of writing, of storytelling. Yeah, and like I mean, you're a filmmaker too. Filmmaking is such a collaborative art. Yes. And look at, being an author is the exact opposite. Yes. So, and being a filmmaker for 30 years or something, I got out of the business, and although I'd still make another movie maybe. Yeah. But then I'm getting into something solo. I liked that. I mean, I love the collaboration of filmmaking, because really, as a director, it's not all you. No. People think it's all you. It's not possible. I know it's not possible. It's not possible. Yeah, it's not all you. You're a director. You made this. No. There's actors. There's production designers. There's music. There's there's cinematographers. It just goes on and on. Yeah. And on. Just watch the credits at the end of a movie. It's so not you. I mean, you're just joining these people together. That's it. You're a conductor of an orchestra. That's it. Yeah. Somebody has to make sure that all of this goes to one place.
That's right.
and willing to be responsible.
That's right.
That's it.
That's it. And
Right.
but with being an author, it's like you're sitting at a desk all by yourself.
All by yourself.
And the only thing you're conducting is these actors. I mean, these actors in your head, these characters.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
So, especially, maybe, if the first few pages, of course, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But then after you get together with all these characters and you know how they speak, and it becomes, much more fluid.
Yeah.
My characters do actually talk to me.
Yes.
As weird as that sounds. Like I'm walking around the house and it's like, what are you going to do here? The characters tell me what they're going to do. And I like that. I mean, that's fun. It's almost like being a kid again in imagination.
Yeah.
Going from being a screenwriter
Yeah.
to novels, that in itself is a major journey. So I mean, and my, writing Weeper, I went through like multiple drafts because the first draft was awful. And it's like,
as Hemingway said it would be.
yeah. And like I'm doing things like, head hopping, they call it, like just jumping from one's perspective to another character's perspective. I'm going, as writing screenplays, there's no such thing as that. So it's like, you got to learn style.
Yes.
You got to learn craft.
Yes.
And that takes multiple editors telling you, you're doing the wrong thing here,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
It's the wrong thing.
So I want to ask about some of the technical details that reflect obviously the kind of the end result of that transition. But I real quick want to ask a question, because you mentioned screenwriting
Yeah.
versus novel writing.
Yeah.
And so, and like you have done both.
Yeah.
And so I went the other way. I'd novel
To
screen.
screenwriting. Okay.
And so, but
Way easier, by the way.
oh, you're not right. I have the the conversation with people, as I'm sure that you have over the years, where people will ask, and especially often you go to film festivals, as I'm sure you've gone to premieres and various variety of things. Although we're sitting here and I'm looking at the posters, and so I'm seeing the awards at the various festivals where you get asked questions. And
I love that.
it's
fun.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But people will ask about screenwriting, and because now you've done both at a very successful level, and which after my first couple of films, especially given that I'd written books, the first one I'm glad it's never been published because it was a learning process.
Yeah.
Glad to have done it, but they are vastly different. And as you just noted, screenwriting is like vastly easier.
Yes.
It's, in my opinion,
It's easier.
It's incomparable.
Yeah.
You're
right.
The comparison of the two. To write, just write a screenwriter, the only thing you have to do is know how to have a story to tell.
Correct.
That's it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're writing dialogue
Action.
and action.
Yeah.
And if you've got a good story that people want to, then the rest of it happens in the process of filmmaking.
Yeah.
You have to do all of that by yourself, as you just mentioned.
That's correct.
In a book. You get an editor down the road, but the editor just works with what you've brought to the table.
That's right.
And then they tell you, okay, this works, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
But you have to do all of that on your own. If you go back 30 years, would you still go the same path? Are you glad you went the way that you did? Do you feel like filmmaking informs your novel writing?
It did. I'd say my screenwriting did help my novel writing, even though I said my first drafts were not that good. But just sitting down, literally, I mean, of course, you're sitting down for far less time on a screenplay. But sitting down and really thinking how a story goes, sure, it absolutely helped. It's hard to even compare them. I mean, you can't really compare them, except for the fact that you came up with a story.
Yes.
And another thing is your actors in a film, they're going to show all your emotion for you as a screenwriter. So you don't know, he was mad.
Yes.
Yeah, he was mad and he ran down the street.
That's it.
But that actor is going to really turn that on and make that real. So this visual element and of course, and sound is going to convince the audience that's watching it, how that character really feels. Well, and of course in a book, you got to write that. And you can't really always tell it. You can't be in action, like telling it to the audience. This is how he feels.
Yes.
You got to show the character is upset by he wiped the sweat from his brow or whatever.
Yes.
So you got to show it in a different way.
I think when it comes to that, because you mentioned earlier, and I don't think it makes you crazy, you have to hear your characters talking to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you write a good book
Yeah.
if you don't hear them talking to you.
I'm glad you said that, so I'm not crazy, right?
No. No, I think in part it's why some of the best movies are adaptations of books.
Yeah.
I think of, especially as a writer, and I'd be interested to know if you have a similar experience when this happens. So, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo,
Yes.
and I read the books,
Yeah.
and then like immediately, and then found out that they made movies.
Right.
So the Swedish trilogy, obviously, we
Yeah.
just have the one. Well, we have two films
Yeah.
that are the non-Swedish versions.
Right.
And so, as much as I love David Fincher and his technical execution,
Sure. Me too.
and with Daniel Craig and
Yeah.
Rooney Mara, but I remember reading those books, and Elizabeth Salander, I fell in love, had the experience of
Loving that character.
falling in love with her.
Yeah.
In my mind, if when I'm now going to the grocery store, if I see her walk in, I'm going over and I'm proposing. I'm going. Which one?
Yeah.
As a author, you're hoping that you
Absolutely.
can do that.
Yeah, to somebody
And
else.
so, but you don't. But you know that I don't fully have control
Yeah.
over that happening.
Right.
And so I've never had a chance to talk with the author, although after reading his books,
Yeah.
I wish I could, and of course he's not alive, so it won't ever be possible.
Yeah.
But because I imagine at some point for him, Lisbeth Salander came alive.
Yeah.
For him,
Yeah,
there's
I agree.
I don't think there's any possible way that I can, and I know other people who've watched the movie.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about characters coming alive and if it makes you crazy,
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps it's a little bit crazy. I don't know how you do it successfully though,
Yeah.
if you don't allow yourself to
Let them talk to you.
let them talk to you.
Yeah.
And tell you, because I don't know otherwise if you could come up with characters like Osborne,
Yeah.
Roche, where then somebody who is either is not neurodivergent or maybe doesn't know that they are, is still making a connection
Right.
to this character in a time frame. I'm not living in that
That's right.
time frame. I don't do that
Great
work.
point.
And maybe a reader's not even been to the Appalachian Mountain, that region, that area. Maybe it's only some concept until they're reading the book.
That's right.
But so I think, yes, if you didn't feel like Osborne was standing there brushing his teeth with you when you brush your teeth in the morning, then the reader doesn't have we don't have a
feel
chance
it too.
of connecting. So
Yes. I completely agree with that.
So maybe it makes you crazy, but I hope you stay crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So when it comes time to then fill in, because writing characters, I think even in my own experience,
Yeah.
when you're writing the people, sometimes that is the most fun of writing, because you're also a human being.
Yeah.
And so, and then like you said, when you're making a movie, maybe it's just an insert shot
Yeah.
to show the technical component, because it's not as sexy,
That's
it's
right.
not as much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
But your technical details, which means, or at least it looks like you devote as much time to developing that aspect of the story as well, about early photography. It ends up making those parts of the story just as fascinating.
Right.
Did you already have hands-on experience? I know you were a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But did you do a lot of behind the camera work? Did you already have that level of fascination with
Old cameras.
old cameras? Was that informed by being a filmmaker?
Yeah. No.
That makes me want to know more.
The truth is that I really didn't know anything about, wet plate photography is what they call it. I wanted my character to be a post-mortem photographer.
Okay.
So that's I had to have that. And I knew, photography was in its infancy back in these days. I did some research, and then I found some awesome people that are still doing this on YouTube.
Yeah.
They're still doing wet plate photography. So I'd watch, diligently all these videos on how they, the whole process, which is fascinating. collodium, which is the name of the book, is this liquidy glue that they pour onto the surface of a hard sheet of tin, and then they put silver nitrate on that. The silver nitrate will stick to the sticky collodion, and then that becomes exposed to silver nitrate, becomes a photograph. To go back to a far previous question, is I learned a lot of history about wet plate photography, just because I needed a character to be a photographer.
Yeah.
The weird thing about collodion is that sticky glue stuff, and the reason I named that book that was because they use it in wet plate photography, and while I'm doing that research, okay, this collodion stuff, whatever, and then that became in the book just based on the photography element. But Lou, the other character, she's an embalmer. And lo and behold, I learned that collodion is what they use for liquid glue. It's a liquid bandage that doesn't, that seals wounds.
Yeah.
Embalmers use it.
Use it.
Bam! I mean, it became not only the perfect title, but it's what joins these two together. Oh, it just fell into place like a soft pillow.
Yeah. So, building off of that, you told us earlier the stories about the Alice Dean wrote something. Probably if we got a chance to, and I imagine, because I'm having this response, I imagine your readers are probably thinking, well, now I want to read that. Which
that's right. And I have this chapter.
Like I'm thinking, I want to read. I want to read that because I'm sure it's as well written as this. And you probably have other pages. We mentioned we're both or filmmakers, but also screenwriters. Yes. Which means we both have footage that doesn't show up in our that we loved. Actually, you and I were talking about this recently. But then also we probably have things that are on our computer, on our laptop or whatever, that probably didn't even make it into the shooting draft of the script.
Deleted scenes.
Like literally.
Yeah, deleted
But they're
scenes.
still on our computer
right.
because when we read those pages, we're like, oh my God, that is so
I know.
good, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's gonna slow it down. It doesn't make sense. Or if I allow this character to do this, then I gotta change this for these three characters.
Yeah.
And now that just bloats my story.
I know.
And so you take it out. For you, what goes into that process when you're going through, because the work that you put in it, like crappy stuff, we don't struggle with that.
Yeah.
If you're reading something, you're like, oh, that's awful. Like, I'm glad I recognized that before anybody else read it. Or you're looking at something that you shot, oh, I'm glad we shot it, but it doesn't work. But the stuff that does work.
I get it.
So for you, how do you decide?
Well, editors for one. But also I send out to beta readers. So you learn from beta readers, you learn from editors. A book should be, you need a certain conflicts at certain places, just like a screenplay. You know that well.
Yeah.
So you need your ramp up, your wall, he hits the wall, all that kind of stuff. Same thing in a book.
Yeah.
So you got to get there.
Yeah.
So sometimes what I do is I say, okay, that scene that I spent so much time on, and I love it.
Yes.
I got to cut it, and I do put it in a folder entitled "Deleted Scenes."
Yeah. Okay.
And just like you were saying with filmmaking, we cut scenes out, and sometimes the actors are going, "Where's my scene?"
Yes.
So you hold it for them. So I'll send it to you.
Yes.
But it's out of the movie.
Right.
So same thing with writing, but basically. You love those things. They're your angels.
Yes.
What do they say? You got to kill your angels or something like that.
Kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings.
Yes.
Yeah, it's totally true. So you just listen to people.
Yeah.
You don't take every criticism, but if enough people are saying something, there's probably something wrong.
Yeah.
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 So that's kind of the way I deal with it. It hurts.
Yeah. So to do it successfully, obviously you have good instincts. Have there been things that, whether it's just an editor or two, told you, I don't know if this is going to work, but then you felt like it would?
Yeah.
You stuck to your guns?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've stuck to my guns on a couple things, and then sometimes later regretted it.
Yeah.
Sticking to my guns.
Yeah.
I know for The Boatman, my latest film, it's, I don't know if I told you the story. It was this great scene. I still have a piece of it in the movie. So I shot that, handheld and slow-mo. And
Okay.
it was just sweet. I put some music over it and it's like, this is genius. And I thought it was one of the best scenes in the film. And then I'm getting comments that you got to cut this scene. Not just one, multiple comments.
Yeah.
I'm going, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is art. But I did cut it. I cut it.
Okay.
And enough people told me that. So I go, especially with filmmaking,
Yeah.
you need to keep that audience. Same with the book, really.
Yes.
You need to keep that audience going. You need them to read the next page.
Yeah.
So kill your darlings.
Yeah. Yeah.
We both know how hard that is.
Do you find it gets easier the longer that you're in this space or with the experience?
I mean, as far as sitting down and writing a book. Is that what you mean?
That, and actually, yeah, we'll expand that question. The whole of it. Of course, we were just talking about the stuff that we have to let go.
Yeah.
After you've given the time
A lot of time.
to it, but do you find it gets easier? Do you find that you even after you shoot it,
Yeah.
and I have learned within the creative process, sometimes you have to, kind of like a lot of things in life, you got to
Yeah.
get through it.
Yeah.
Like some things maybe life affords you opportunity to maybe go around it, like maybe go this way.
Yeah.
But some things you got to go through.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think creatively sometimes when you're the creator of the art,
Yeah.
whether it's screenwriting or
Filmmaking.
filmmaking, like sometimes you got to do it even to get to the place on the other side.
Yeah.
Where you probably will find,
Yeah.
okay, I'll let it go. But maybe you wouldn't have gotten there if you don't even take the time to shoot that
Right.
scene. Maybe it
good point.
it unlocks
Yeah.
something else, or it just gives you the ability to see
Yeah, yeah.
something else that maybe you would have stayed stuck behind.
Yeah.
Because you still would have been thinking, but I think that scene maybe would have worked. Maybe that, or
Yeah.
And so, do you find that process to happen, and then do you find it easier to kind of get from A to B with experience because you've learned?
For the first part of the question, I don't find it easier.
Yeah.
I still find it difficult.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you loved that scene. You thought it was great. In a film,
Yeah.
you're thinking, you know how long it took me to shoot that
Right.
scene? That's
Yes.
another thing.
Yes.
It's not just, sometimes it's the time, not just the beauty.
Right.
But it's like, we were there for 2 days.
Yeah.
I'm throwing all of that footage out. Ouch.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah.
So I don't think it ever gets easier. You need a lot of footage for a
Yes.
film, so
Yeah.
still going to shoot some stuff that's going to be cut.
Yeah.
In writing a book, no, I don't know, because just like I said, sometimes you do go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
You got to go this way,
Yeah.
and it's not working out. You didn't know that when you started that.
That's true.
So you write for like a week in one section, and
Yes.
now you got to throw it out, and it's good.
Yes.
It's good. It
Yes.
just doesn't take your story to the right place.
Yes.
I will still go off on tangents. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes. So, this kind of answer, some in part answers the question, but I'm going to ask the question specifically. But when you're going through, you're doing all this research and you're discovering all of these things, like the Alistine.
Yes.
So your characters obviously weren't on that ship, but that event
Yes.
happened. So when you're going through and you're trying to figure out the best way to combine, how do you
Good question.
decide which historical details that you keep authentic,
Yeah.
and then which things that you kind of take some license with without feeling like
Yeah.
you've made up something that
Right.
then a reader might like, oh, you lost me there because...
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going to get a lot of readers that will completely criticize you if you're wrong in something, on
Yeah.
a historical thing. So I try to be as accurate as possible with that. I will take license very slightly. Like some event happened in spring, and I needed it to happen in winter or something like that. I will do something like that. I don't know if I did, but I would be willing to do that. A character, a sidekick to Jeb Stuart, the real person in Clodion, a real general. I added a side. Well, he didn't have a sidekick, so that's fictitious.
Yeah.
All of his other generals, by the way, they are real generals too. So I was very accurate with that, and I love being accurate because I don't want to be criticized.
Yeah.
And they will criticize. No,
Yes.
This never happened.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, but it's a book.
But
it's
right.
fiction.
Uh-huh.
But I want to be as close to it as possible. But
Yes.
yeah, you do have to. One funny thing that happened to me was Andersonville prison.
Okay.
My character has to. This is in Weeper, my first book. My character has to be held in a prison. So, and I made it Andersonville. I was under the impression that Andersonville lasted all 4 years of the Civil War. And it was only there 1 year. And so it was the wrong year. But I think if I recall, I even changed my character's timeline to make sure he could be in Andersonville that year that it was open. You want to be as historically correct as possible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You, the characters,
Yes.
Osborne and Charlotte.
I think I know where you're going to go with that question.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you're
Unlikely romance,
yes.
but it's touching.
Yeah.
And so, but that unlikely part, and I don't know if this was the case for you, so this is part of the question. When you start writing, how soon did you know about both of those characters? Was one, obviously we've talked about Osborne.
Yeah.
But even when Charlotte started talking to you,
Yeah.
I love that, so I'm gonna use that.
Right.
When Charlotte started cutting, when she started to come alive in your mind, so then you're starting to see, okay, who she is.
Yeah.
Where she go. Did you always know that did you create her for, okay.
Yeah, no, I really didn't. I didn't know where I was going to take her. I mean, this is Sin Eater, by the way.
Okay.
In Weeper, I knew exactly what she was the main protagonist. I think it was very fluid that she became one of the main protagonists. She wasn't it originally in my plotting of this. You gave a little thing away about, I don't know if there's any kind of relationship going to happen between these two. But if there does, I have had a lot of beta readers say, at the beginning of the story, they don't like her, Charlotte. They don't like her, but they love the fact of her character arc.
Yeah. One of the things that I think you did really well, I think it's functional to good storytelling.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, different from good writing. And you've probably had this experience.
Yeah.
Whether when you were a filmmaker for so many years, I imagine you had people approach you, give you scripts.
Yeah.
And had the experience I know I have on a smaller scale than you.
Right.
But people will give you something, you think the writing is good, the storytelling is not,
Yeah.
or the opposite.
Right.
Like good
Or the
storytelling, you might want to find somebody who can write.
Yeah.
So to connect that, you write a story that seems to be really focused or steeped in death.
Yeah.
The
Death rituals.
The death rituals, even what your title characters do. And, so if you start to delve into that and you start to wonder, okay, so what's their life like? Like, how did they get to the point where that's what
Correct.
they chose? Is that a function of their perspective about life?
Yeah.
so on and so it would be easy, albeit I think lazy assumption, or that's really what the story is about.
Yeah.
But in fact, they actually feel ultimately life affirming.
It's just like you said about, let me go back to filmmaking. Someone says, you've been pitched probably tons of times, just like me. I know this great story about this blind detective. And then you go, and? No, you got to make a movie about this blind detective because he's blind. That's hard to be a detective when he's blind. And I tell him, you just came up with a character.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Okay, so you got a character. There's no story there
no
at
story.
all.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I got this great story, it's not.
Which is how it always starts.
Yeah.
I got this really great story.
Yeah, but then it's just a
and
character.
And then they tell you that, and you know, it's like, actually, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. That's
Thank
nothing.
you for wasting my
Yeah, but that's the thing is with my characters is, you know, I have them. I thought that writing about the old death rituals and so many different versions of that and positions and professions, but that was all they were, is just characters, and that was their character.
Yeah.
Then I put them in a story. So it's like pick them up and say, this is the story that you guys are going to play. My stories, all three of those books have to do with family relations and unintended consequences, and that type of, that's the themes of the story. So to answer your question, it's literally just taking those characters and with interesting professions and putting in a story that I made up.
Okay.
You know, within the context of the Appalachian Mountains and history of 1850s.
When you were sitting down and putting the story together,
Yeah.
and I do know, whether it's for like a full-length screenplay, and this is hopefully helpful but for anybody watching who might want to themselves write,
Yeah.
because something that you just mentioned I think is really crucial to the process,
Yeah.
which is you just like, okay, this character does this,
Yeah.
and then this character does this, and I'm just going to put them in the story.
Yeah.
And today, I'm going to write these 5 pages. I don't know. So today I get to page 42. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I have it outlined. But I don't know what's going to happen on page 80.
Correct.
But I'm not worried about that today.
Right. That's
Today I'm
right.
just writing pages 37 through 43.
This scene, right?
This is it. Yeah. And so those aspects, do they come alive as you're going along?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I don't believe I even create them.
Okay.
So I'm creating the story with these particular characters and they're reacting a certain way. And I think that creates those kind of themes in itself.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, other writers will want to write a story based on a theme. And I don't.
Yeah.
I let the theme appear.
Yeah.
So I didn't attempt it.
Yeah. So
a lot of people, I love these themes that you came up with. No, I really didn't.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they just appeared.
Yes.
Okay, so you liked the story that came with that theme.
Yes.
So that's kind of my way. And that's a short answer to your long question.
So then, what's next for you as a writer?
I have like 3 books that I've been kind of playing with. And I do have one that may not be a historical fiction, which might irritate my readers. I don't know. So who knows?
Yeah.
Sky's the limit.
Fantastic. Yeah. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great conversation.
I agree.
As usual.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Were you right?
Let's go, yeah.
Okay.
So this is where the magic happens.
I love this office.
My collection of cameras over there.
I love this office.